All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to a discussion on the realm of the Elderlings. Now, a little background here, but first, let me introduce my guest here. I have the honor to speak with the one and only Mike from Mike's Book Reviews. Ta-da! Hello, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. How are you? Thanks so much for the invite. I appreciate it.
Oh, it is my pleasure. I was looking for an excuse to chat with you, and this is a good one because we have been reading The Realm of the Elderlings this year with the goal of finishing at the end of the year. It might spill into January. We'll see how that goes. But we're both behind a month, essentially, I think. Is that the
Thanks.
deal?
So yeah, I took October off, and you've been writing a bunch of books, so you've been
Yeah.
busy and stuff like that. So yeah, real life gets in the way, but I still think we're going to be covering about 85% of the series in the course of a year. So I think
Yeah.
that's not bad. Not bad.
Not bad at all. Yeah. For me, I actually had read the first trilogy, Farseer, many years ago,
Hmm.
but it was really helpful that we had our group discussion. Now, I want to acknowledge that first, too, is that we had these wonderful discussions with a great group of people, including Madison and Jake and Scott. And also Derry came in for the Live Ship Traders one. So we had a great discussion on Farseer. We had a great discussion on Live Ship Traders. And those were really helpful for me,
Yeah.
getting myself back up to speed so that I could join you in reading Tawny Man. And now we finished reading the Rainwild's Chronicles. So we've got one trilogy left to go, essentially. And I thought, why don't we just
Which
take...
I started this morning. Yeah.
Oh, you're ahead of me now because I haven't
Like a
started.
chapter. I'm a chapter ahead of you. Yes.
Okay, I'll get on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we have the last trilogy, the Fitz and the Fool trilogy, to go. And I thought, you know what, Mike and I, we haven't had a chance to talk about really much at all about Tawny Man, and we haven't talked about this tetralogy, the one tetralogy in all of the realm of the Elderlings. So this is going to be our chance to have a chat, essentially. And I'm hoping, both of us are hoping, that we'll be able to get that group together again once Mike and I are done, and we can talk with everybody about the series as a whole. So that would be fantastic.
Yeah, if they want to go back and talk Tawny Man and tell me why, I'm sure Gary can give me an hour thesis on why Rain Wilds is spectacular. I'm sure she can do that, and I love her for it. And I feel like I'm learning when I talk to Derry. We'll probably still. I would like to get that group together. Just really, really hard when you try to get 5 people, different time zones, different walks of life together at the
It is
same
hard.
time.
Yeah.
But we do still hope to make it happen because I have had a lot of people ask me about that. But we'll get something together, I think, for sure.
Awesome. In the meantime, this will have to do. So
Yeah.
I do want to get a sense of now where you are. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here. So in terms of where you are right now, and I know this can change because we've
Sure.
got one, and for many people, the favorite trilogy of the
Sure.
entire
Yeah.
series, Fitz and the Fool, is yet to come. But at this point, Mike, do you feel like Realm of the Elderlings as a whole could make it into your top 10 of
Yeah.
fantasy?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I people hear me talk about it, and I feel like you will always talk about the things you like to gripe about a lot more than things you love, and so they'll just hear kind of those negative things and think that you're not enjoying it. They're like, "Oh, I'm sorry, you're not enjoying it." I'm like, "I'm enjoying it. I'm just bringing up the things that aren't really hitting for me."
Right.
Yeah, what I've consistently said is, if Rain Wilds is the worst part of your series, you wrote a pretty damn good series. So I think just on her structure and her writing style alone, this is going to crack my top 10 because she's an amazing storyteller. Sometimes she takes a roundabout way to get there, but I'm usually pretty happy when she
Yeah.
does get there. And I can't say it's no higher compliment for me than to say, besides Stephen King, she writes characters probably the best I've ever seen. So
Yeah.
again, that's not a compliment that I'm going to throw out lightly.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. And by the way, we're keeping this non-spoiler for now, but I will give a warning when we start talking spoilers.
Yeah. When
We'll
we complain
probably...
about Rap Skull later, you'll know why. Yeah. You'll know. You'll know.
Yeah, we're probably going to spoil some of the Tawny Man, and later we'll spoil the live. No, what am I saying? Rainwild's Chronicles. But
It's
I'll
easy
warn
to get these names confused, isn't it?
there's so many fools and so many Fitzes and
And
Fates
ships
and
and assassins.
ships and assassins. So I'm just like,
It's like a name generator of titles. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I easily get confused with these. I'm sure there are some people, Derry, who would never get confused about any of these titles, but I'm still, I guess, a relative newbie here. So yeah. But so yeah, for me, I already had Realm of the Elderlings in my top 10 based on just the first two trilogies because I love Live Ship Traders.
Yeah.
I think it's brilliant stuff. The question for me is going to be, can this series as a whole, Realm of the Elderlings, so my number 1 and 2 are very firmly entrenched. For me, Lord of the Rings was for many years until, relatively recently, my number 1. It's slipped to number 2, and that was for Malazan. Malazan as a whole, all the Erickson stuff, all the Esselmont stuff. Can Realm of the Elderlings get into that? Can it possibly displace Lord of the Rings or Malazan? For me, that's going to be the question. So far, I don't think so. So far, based on the everything I've read so far, it's going to be number 3. It's still number 3 for me. Unless Fitz and the Fool just blows me away. I think it's probably...
So it's sitting at that table having a conversation with them, but they're not being invited to the head spot of the table yet. That's what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, pretty much that's where it is for me, I would say.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I don't know. I update my top 10 every other year because I feel like I'm going to be reading more and more series, and if I feel like there's enough to change, I will do that. So, spoiler, guys, next year I'll be doing my top 10 fantasy series. This will be on it somewhere. I don't have any doubt. Yeah.
All right, that is awesome to hear. You heard it here first, folks. So.
Breaking news, guys. Yeah.
So, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm quite certain, based on what I've read so far, that there's no way it's going to get lower than number 3 on my top 10 list. Which, by the way, I haven't redone it in 3 years or so. It's been a while.
Look, I know those videos are popular, and I get why people do them every year. Me, I'm just like, I don't think my top 10 changes a ton. So I was like, why am I going to make the exact same video if there's no changes on it? But there'll be some changes on the next one because I've read some big fantasy series since then.
Yeah. Oh, I bet I can name a couple of them. But yeah. So anyway, yeah. So awesome. So now that we got that out of the way, another question for you, totally non-spoiler, but let's rank the series so far. Obviously, we're not including Fitz and the Fool because you've read literally one chapter of it.
Right.
But let's rank them. So, and for you, Mike, starting for lowest, let's go lowest to highest.
I think everyone knows it's going to be Rain Wild is my least favorite so far.
Yeah.
It felt like it was one of those things. If I had read them kind of when I was a teenager, I might have actually liked it a little more. But it really does feel like, CW came to Robin Hobb and said, "Hey, write us a dragon fantasy series that we can put on the air that's going to attract tweens." And I felt like that's what she did. And I feel like the stuff that's going on in the world is great, but the characters, the first time the characters just didn't really latch for me like they had with the previous 3 trilogies. So
right. Fair enough. Okay. And next lowest. So you have 4 to rank here.
This is where people are probably going to flip tables with me. I'd go with Tawny Man next. And I know a lot of people, Tawny Man's their favorite.
Ooh, okay.
Golden Fool is one of my least favorite books in the series because it's just a lot of nothing. And again, I said, I think that she's a wonderful writer and she does take a roundabout way to get there. Sometimes that one was just like, well, it's the whole book. And so it kind of brought that one down for me. And then a lot of stuff that happened in, was it Fool's Fate? Is that what the third one was called?
That's the third one. Yeah.
Some decisions she made in Fool's Fate I wasn't thrilled with. And that's a personal me thing. There's just some things I didn't want to happen. Of course they happened. And it's not just characters passing away. Because, guys, I've read a lot of fantasy where characters die. That's not anything that's ever going to make me say, oh, I hate this book because of a character I like died. No, I think that makes it more precious when that happens. Just some plot elements I didn't really care for. That kind of brought it down. But I still will say that Fool's Errand is my favorite book in the entire series.
Wow.
So it's my 3rd favorite trilogy, but it has my favorite book I've read by her ever. So
in Fool's Errand, that's book 1 of Tawny Man. Okay. Awesome. All right. And so you've got 2 left. So I think I know what the order is going to be. But you go ahead and tell me.
Number 2 would be the Farseer trilogy. I really enjoyed the first book. A lot of people always say, oh, that's not representative of the series as a whole. Don't worry if you don't like that first book. And I was like, well, I freaking love the first book because I love coming of age. I love the going through the years of someone's life and obviously animal companions and stuff. So I was on board right away. And Royal Assassin was just as good. there was some things I've talked about with book 3 in that series where I was like, but in hindsight, I've kind of went back and thought about some things, and I kind of liked it. I just didn't like the 600 pages of going through the snow talking about hunting, and that's all they were doing was talking about hunting. Oh wait, now we're actually going to go hunt. But again, that's just some of the things that you deal with in this series. If this is this, you're not going to get a lot of pew 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 get to the punch in this series. That's not the series for you if that's what you're looking for. But I think in hindsight, the arrow is kind of pointing up on that book to where if I ever did reread it, I probably would get more out of it now than I did before.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I mean, there aren't too many writers where I could read 600 pages of trudging through snow or 200 pages of having tea or whatever, where I'm actually enjoying.
Oh, Elfberg. Nightmares about Elfberg still. Yes, yes.
Bark tea. Yeah. So then obviously your number ones at the moment, and you haven't read.
I see zero chance that this can knock off Live Ship, because I was like, I did my best trilogies of all time recently, and Live Ship was on there. Just a tight, compact story, something always going on. I loved every single side plot. Every side character was great. And the ones that I didn't like, it was one of those things like you love to hate them, that kind of thing. And I think that's just writing good characters. And then Captain Kennett, one of the best villains I've ever read in a fantasy series,
there.
bar none. Just a spectacular story. And it's one of those things you kind of look at it and you can see from Kennett's point of view, he's the hero of this story. It's such a compelling character. And I think it just made that story so enjoyable, so enjoyable. And it's weird because I've heard so many people be like, "Oh yeah, I skipped Live Ship because I just wanted to read the Fitz books." And I'm looking back on it now, I'm like, man, you messed up. You missed out.
Dude, right now, Jake is watching this video and he's cheering and clapping.
Yes, yes, he was right. He told me he thought I would like Live Ship, and he was very, very right. Jake's been right on everything with me except for Codex Alera, which again wasn't really his fault. It was just a thing. It's just a thing. But yes, Jake knows what I like. He recommends me great stuff.
Cool. Yes. Plus, he is Jake. Don't skip Live Ship.
Jake, don't skip Live Ship Bishop, and I hope he's right with Guy Gabriel K. That's the next one he has on deck.
Oh, he that is near and dear to him. So yes, yeah. Hopefully that works out.
Don't you love that when you love something, you recommend it to someone, and then you're excited they're going to read it, then you get scared they're not going to like it?
Well, believe me, I know all the time. Yeah. So awesome. Well, so that's your order for the.
Yeah, what's yours? I know you got yours on deck.
Yeah, mine's a little different, although we do have the same number 4, bottom of the heap. And I will say that I actually enjoyed it overall. Yeah. It's, like you said, if this is the worst you can do, then man, you're amazing. You're wonderful. So for me, Robin Hobb is one of the greatest, if not the greatest character writer in the genre. And I did not connect as emotionally to this story. I didn't mind the characters. Some of what was going on between the characters, some of the little love triangle stuff going on. I was a little
my favorite. Yeah.
Oh, please, can we just get over this? Yeah. Because I was not as invested in that, but I did like the characters, interestingly. So, and I did feel some investment. There were some. I didn't even come close to crying or no tears in this one, which
is weird for a Robin Hood book not to get emotional, right?
Yeah. I didn't feel as emotional reading this. And for me, when I read Robin Hobb, it's like it's an emotional experience. So if I'm gonna go just on pure emotional reaction, this one I was clearly not as attached to these characters as I am to the characters in the other series so far. So
right on.
So it was a good read. I'm very glad I did it. It gave me some great insight into the lore of the world, and it was enjoyable.
I think for me, I wanted it to be like that sequel to Live Ship. That's kind of what I wanted. And you get a little bit of the Cooper's family and stuff, but I wanted a lot more. That's what I was kind of hoping for.
I mean, we had cameos from some of the Live Ship,
and those were my favorite parts.
I was like, oh, it's so and so, yes, and then they're gone. So. But no, it was a satisfying read. I'm glad I read this. I would actually, I mean, people talk about skipping Live Ship. Don't skip Live Ship, but don't skip the Rain Wilds either. I think you'd miss some important lore.
I feel like the moment I told someone to do that, something's going to happen if Fitz in the Fool, and a character is going to show up that's very important. They're going to be like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "Oh, damn it," So. Yeah, I agree there. It's if again, this is the worst you got. I don't regret reading it or anything like that. Like I heard people were like, "Oh, don't read it. You'll hate yourself." it. I don't regret it. No.
Now, for me, I think the books in the Rain Wilds got better with each book. I know that wasn't the case for you. I
Like three and four are my favorite, but three was my favorite of the four. Yeah.
three was your favorite overall. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
Memory Stone stuff is just awesome to me. I love that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. That is that. And that's one of the things that you feel like is connecting all the Fitz books with the Life Ship books and
And Other Island and all that stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff.
yeah.
Great,
Yeah.
great stuff. Connecting her world. She's just great at building out this world. She really is.
Yeah, I do. I feel like it. Now, I don't know. I haven't looked into this, but I wonder how much she planned all of this from the beginning, or did she just sort of start writing these other books and think, oh yeah, I can link this like this and just make it up as she was going along. What do you think? Was she planning all this?
I don't know. There's that, and I always get it wrong. Was it George R. R. Martin say some people are gardeners and some people are, I don't know, whatever kind of writers there.
Architects.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I want to say that going off of the experience of Stephen King, where he says the story just kind of comes to him as he's writing it. And I'm just saying, I feel like they have similar kind of writing styles in that regard.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe she just kind of said, hey, like he did with the multiverse, said, hey, this stuff's all kind of connecting in a way. I can just kind of keep building off that lore and history. But
Right.
I don't know. I don't know if she's the type who would actually have had a big, whiteboard with her outline. Here's how I'm going to connect. And I know it's going to be exactly this many books and stuff. I think it just kind of kept growing as she was writing it.
That's what I think too. I mean, that's my impression of reading, is that it grew as she was continuing in these various series.
And that's me talking without ever hearing a single lecture or an interview or anything with her. So who knows? Who knows? She might be the type that absolutely does that.
Yeah. But I agree with you. That's my impression as well. So anyway, that's number 4 for me. And number 3 for me is going to be Farseer.
Okay.
Actually, Farseer, which I loved and I enjoyed thoroughly. It is the foundation in many ways for stuff that I enjoyed later. So I appreciate that it provided that. And I think if I reread Farseer, I'm going to like it even more. And I do intend to do that at some point. So yeah, and it's been many years since I read it, but I did not feel like I think the second book was the one that I actually liked the most. The ending of the
most people like Royal Assassin the best. Yeah.
Yeah. The ending of that one was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Okay. That's okay. Robin Hobb is famous.
Yeah.
She's famous for torturing her characters. And that's the exhibit A, I think, is the ending of that second book in Farseer. Yeah. So then I would have to go, and here's where we definitely part ways. Although I love Live Ship Traders. It is the one that made me take Robin Hobb from top 15 to number 3 on my list. So I do love it, but it's for me my in second place of the trilogies that I've read so far. Live Ship Traders, brilliant trilogy. Love the character work. You said it perfectly. Kenneth is one of the best villains of all time. You've got some much more complex, by the way, than what you get in Farseer. One of the reasons why I like Live Ship better is in the POV thing really did help to give you a much more complex villain. Whereas in Farseer, Regal is he's a kind of a mustache twirling villain here. Yeah, I mean that's all he is, really.
Evil for evil's sake. Yeah.
More or less. Yeah, I mean you get some sense that he resented his siblings and blah blah blah, but really he's pretty flat,
like a fairy tale villain.
Yeah. So for me, Live Ship was like, wow, okay, this is now I get it.
Well, I don't want to derail too much, but Jake actually brought up a point to me on this that I want to see where you stand on it with regards to Regal. And I'll try not to go too long with this. He said, well, you think about the difference between Live Ship and Farseer is obviously you have first person narrative. So how much of that is unreliable narrator, where that's how Fitz sees Regal, is just this awful, evil guy with no redeeming qualities. Whereas in Live Ship, you actually get inside the villain's head. Do you think that actually could be possible?
Yeah, of course. Regal is probably the hero of his own narrative. Right?
Yeah, sure.
So yes, I think that's true. And you do gain something from the first person narration. So in Farseer, Fitz is the narrator. you get a lot of insight into Fitz that way. And that's why he's probably one of the most beloved characters in all of fantasy, because a lot of people feel a deep sense, as much as he's an idiot, people feel a huge sense of connection to him. And a lot of that is because of Hobbes' choice to make that a first person narrative. And also Tawny Man, for that matter. So I think that there are pros and cons, and you gain something and you lose something when you choose a particular narrative perspective. So I would agree with Jake on that. And that's fair enough. But I enjoyed the multi POV a little more, honestly.
Same. Yeah, always.
That said, my favorite trilogy so far has been Tawny Man. And
hey, I'm just glad you disproved my theory that your favorite book in a series is the most recent one that you've read. So I'm just glad that disproved that theory. But I'm still mad at you about Song of Susanna. But it's okay. It's okay. We don't have to agree on that.
Well, I actually did end up liking Dark Tower more than Song of Susanna, but
that's a low bar. No, so you didn't have the problems that I have with Tawny Man. Go ahead.
Well, I did. You know what? I did. I actually agree with you, Mike, that every single book in Tawny Man, all three of them start with at least 200 pages of tea sipping.
and babysitting, yeah.
And babysitting. And the third one, I would say, actually, you're right. It's more like 300 pages of it before you really get a sense of the plot starting to really move. That happens. And I agree with you 100% on that. But you also said, and I agreed with this, there is something you're gaining from that. You're getting this deeper sense of the characters. You're getting this is a Hobb thing. So I think she does it really, really well. She takes her time with the world building, takes her time with the character development, the relationships. And that's why in the second half of the book, it has such a huge emotional impact, which really worked for me in all three of those books. And I will say the third book, I could barely read the last 100 pages because I kept having to dry my eyes. It was that bad. So just in terms of emotional impact, it's definitely.
I think if you have told me, you just give me like the cliff notes of what happens in the last third of Fool's Fate, I'd been like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be a mess.
Yeah.
It's just kind of the way it was executed. It was just like, felt like Star Wars: A Force Awakens to me. So I was yeah. So
whoa.
We can get to that later, but yeah.
Okay, we'll get to that actually very soon, because I think we've had our say pretty much in the non-spoiler stuff. So this is everybody's warning. We're going to talk Tawny Man spoilers. We're probably not going to talk too long about it because it's been a while since Mike and I read it, but we're going to talk about just big highlights. And then I'll warn you when we get to the Rainwild.
Spoilers of everything before Fitz and the Fool. So if you haven't read the Fitz and the Fool, be careful because we might talk about something that happened in Farce here. We might talk about something that happened in Live Ship. So
yeah. And neither one of us has read Fitz and the Fool, so don't spoil that for us, please. Yeah. So all right, Mike, let's talk Tawny Man. And we both agree that these have very slow starts. And there are many authors where I would have just tapped out, after 100, 200 pages of.
Yeah, halfway through Fool's Errand, like they haven't even left this cabin yet. And I'm like, you know what? They could stay here the whole book. I'm enjoying this for some reason.
There was a ton of nostalgia. There was a big nostalgia factor.
It felt like I didn't know how much I had missed those characters from Farseer until those first 100 pages of Fool's Errand. I was like, my gosh, this is great. Yeah.
So would you say then that the Fool's Errand is one of the best starts to a Robin Hobb book?
Sure. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And I know a lot of people said like, oh, I tried reading that and they just hanging around and drinking in a cabin in the snow. And I was like, I get it. I was just like, that's just some of the best slice of life I've read. And just seeing these two characters reconnect, it just, I don't know, it's you right here. I felt like, wow, this is great. I'm really loving this.
Yeah, in terms of Fitz, his relationships, Starling is exposed as maybe not your favorite character or mine.
I was like, oh, great. This is the one I wanted to bring back. Yeah, sure. But still, again, I say with her characters, there are none you're really indifferent to. You either love them or you love to hate them. And I think that's just a sign of a good character writer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I would have to say that the thing that sticks out to me the most, and this is a big spoiler, everybody, for the series as a whole, for Fool's Errand, you know where I'm going, is Night Eyes, who's one of my favorite characters.
this kind of upset me because I was like, the way that people talk about this character,
Yeah.
I was not going to fool myself and think this character was going to make it through the whole series. You know, I understand how years work. I understand how aging works on wolves. I understand how that works, you know, but I would have thought this character was in the series a lot longer than 3 appearances, you know? So that's why it caught me so off guard. And yeah, I wasn't ready. And I know you were dealing with actually like losing a pet at the time. So I was
Yeah.
like, I know how bad this hit me. I was like, I feel awful what Phil's about to read. Yeah. So
Yeah, because you were ahead of me, and yeah, and I had just lost my dog, Belladonna, and it was rugged. It was really rugged to read about Night Eyes, who and my dog had gotten old, and that was a very, very just hit me so hard, but so beautifully done, because the sense of Fitz and Night Eyes being that partnership, that sense of their identities kind of blending with each other because they were that close, was a beautiful thing too. So the loss was just, it was raw.
oh man, I was in full on like bargaining stage. No, that was just a dream, right? That was just a dream. There's no
All
I
the
was like
stages
trying
of
to make
grief.
deals. Please, no, that was just a dream.
Denial is the first stage of grief,
Oh
my
yeah.
friend.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but it was beautiful, and sort of such a, I guess, a transcending kind of experience. So I appreciated it deeply, even though it hit me because I didn't think it was going to happen that soon either.
But
But
there's so many other things in that book pre that just I like. It's getting back to with Chade, who I consider like, you know, him and Birch, like his 2 dads, basically is who I consider those 2. You know, we don't actually see him with Birch in this one, but seeing with Chade, I love that. But there's parts where Fitz is getting real bad back into his assassin kind of ways, and Night Eyes has to call him on his bullshit. And he's like, so we're just going to kill everybody? Why don't you just kill me too? Because I saw what you did. And that's when Fitz is like, okay, maybe I'm acting a little bit like a maniac. So I felt like Night Eyes obviously kept him a little grounded, kept him from kind of going down that Anakin Skywalker kind of dark path. I felt like so.
yeah,
This is the first time I was actually worried for the character. Like, how's he going to go without this? You know, his other half. You know, that set
yeah.
up so many things.
I mean, it's so beautiful how a friendship, it changes us. And usually for the better, right? Because we become more like the people we hang out with. That's true for a partner. That's true for a good friend. We influence each other. We change each other, and you see that so beautifully in this relationship between those 2, and the gap that is left, and that is so real and so well done. That sense of Fitz is not going to just, stroll out and find a new, wit bond partner. That's just not going to happen.
Yeah, that's what I was worried about, honestly. It's like, is he just going to attach himself to the next animal he sees?
Yeah. At least he has that much wisdom that he doesn't do that. He's very true to himself in that sense. So,
but you just want to talk about one of the best slice of life books that I've read, and just about, losing key companions and stuff. Fool's Errands towards the top of that list, without a doubt.
Yeah. What about the other 2 books? Now you had, I
Okay.
think, here's where the issues can come
Let
out.
me talk about what I liked first. What I liked first is when I read Farseer, and so many people were like, "Oh, don't you just love the Fool?" And I was like, I guess I was kind of like whatever on the Fool, because I read Farseer in 2021, and I didn't read anything again until we started back this year with this. So I was just kind of like, I don't know why everybody likes this character so much. Maybe something happens later on. I saw it, this trilogy that I really did grow to really love that relationship between the 2 of them, and I really did grow to like that character quite a bit. My problem with this books 2 and 3 in this is it says pretty much the first couple 100 pages of Golden Fool. Okay, here's our quest. I'm like, great. Okay, we've got a direction. We know where we're going.
Yeah.
It's not until the halfway point of Fool's Fate that they start to do that damn quest. So basically half of this trilogy is babysitting, and I know it's him creating like his new coterie, however you say that word.
Yeah.
How do you say it? How do you say it?
Coterie. Yeah.
Coterie. I always say coterie. Coterie. Yeah. So I get that. You need to kind of do some time to build up your relationship, show you how your team's going to work and stuff. I just don't know that I needed like 1,200 pages to do that.
Yeah.
And a lot of Fitz babysitting, And look, I have a special needs child. I understand how hard that can be sometimes. I get it. And I think it's actually written very well. It's very, very bitchy. Some days you just feel like throwing everything up and just running away. I get it. I know what that's like and stuff.
Yeah.
Just didn't need it that long. That's all.
Yeah, I do love what she does with the wit in this particular trilogy.
I'm just
And
glad I finally understand what the hell it is.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I have a feeling we're going to learn more in Fitz and the Fool, but
probably. Yeah.
I like the wit of the two big magic systems, if you want to call them that, in this series. I like the wit a little more myself. But I also like what she was doing with all the social unrest and the persecution of people with the wit. And I thought that was kind of brilliant the way.
Yeah, the Piebald Prince little novella. Did you get to read that one?
I had not read that actually, so that gives you some background
Yeah, it
information.
does. It does give you a lot of background. It's a quick read too. I read it in a day. So if you get a
Yeah, I
chance,
got
you
to
get
read
actually
that.
get a hold of it. I recommend it because it goes into stuff about that, about the Willful Princess. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll probably circle back. And there are other short stories as well, or novellas.
That's the only one that I've read.
Oh,
So that's
okay.
the only one that I have because they made it match with this set. So I was like, well, I got to get it because it matches the sets, you know. So
That's good marketing.
yeah.
Yeah. So good. Yeah, I'll have to definitely circle back and read that. Yeah. So I like that. And I think a lot of the power for me in Tawny Man was in the reunions. Reunions really get me.
Yeah.
They get me in the feels, as the kids say these days.
Mhm.
So it's when a character's been apart for so long, and really it's in Fool's Fate. I mean, you get a bit of it in Golden Fool. And a lot of that stuff is Fitz and the Fool trying to just, they're figuring out each other, and there's this, there's a lot going on in their relationship. But I think that part of the satisfaction of Fool's Fate is the understanding that finally develops, the breakthroughs that happen, and an understanding between them that you get in Fool's Fate, plus all the reunions. So you mentioned already Fitz and Chade, Fitz
Yeah.
and Burrich.
Yeah. That's my
That
number four.
was
Yeah.
so powerful. Just to see them get back together again, and of course, you knew somebody had to go at the end of Fool's Fate. You knew that was going to happen, and Burrich was kind of a logical candidate there, but it really sucked to have him back and then gone again so fast.
Yeah, I didn't like it. It to me, it felt like when I said Force Awakens, it felt like, oh, we're going to bring Harrison Ford back, who doesn't really want to do this just to kill him off. This is what it kind of felt like to me. And I think one thing I didn't like about it, and again, I've always liked that she writes her damaged characters, especially when she writes the way that family can be just really the shittiest people to each other.
Yep.
Is how I think like once Fitz is back, like Burge is like, whatever about my actual kids. So, and I never was able to get on board with Burge marrying Molly. I don't know. That just drove me crazy. I know people try to explain it to me, and I'm like, I understand where you're coming from. I still don't like it, you know. So
because it was a father-son relationship.
but then I hate it even worse. It's like, oh, well, hey, check it out, Fitz. Molly is available again. So
So you did not like that aspect of
did
Fitz.
not. Molly was my least favorite character in Farseer, and I did not know. Mm-mm.
I felt so bad for Fitz. I was like, yeah, this is fine. I like that he gets finally to be with the person he wants to be with.
Oh yeah, cool. Congratulations. You can have your girlfriend back and your 6 kids. There you go.
Hey,
better late than never.
Better late than never. That's right, my friend.
I think it really comes down to if you were waiting for that, then yeah, you probably got something that felt really, really cool in that. And I mean, I started this, and hey, what do you know? She's there, so I'm gonna just have to. I'm just gonna have to deal with it. I'm just gonna have to live with it. Maybe time has been a healer, and she's she's less like going on vacation with the ambulance at this point, So there we go.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you which reunion actually nearly broke me, was the most emotionally impactful, and it's not one of the big ones necessarily, although I think it's a big one.
Etrigan?
No, well, that was beautiful too. There were
Okay.
some bits and Catrican moments that I loved in here as well, and their understanding and their relationship was beautiful. But it was Fitz and Patience.
Oh, Lady Patience, yes. Okay. Yeah.
It was Fitz and Patience. So it was a mother thing. Something about mothers and how strong they are, and also through their love, how vulnerable they are, just gets me every time. And Patience, her relationship with Fitz is, of course, going back to, Farseer, where he is a reminder that her husband was unfaithful to her,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
He's a reminder of something that is painful to her, and yet she embraces him as a
Yeah,
son.
she's the anti Catelyn Stark. Yes, she's
Yes,
it.
yeah, she is. In fact, yeah, yeah. Can you imagine? Yeah, if Jon Snow had been embraced by Catelyn the way she embraces her other kids. So Patience, of course, didn't have any other kids, so I don't know if that made a difference or not. But it's such a beautiful thing, and that reunion, not just Patience, but also what was her friend's name, who was her maidservant, but they're really more like friends at this point.
Yeah, I don't
I'm
remember.
blanking. I feel so bad because I love that
I
character.
just had to learn all those characters
Lacey,
from
is it
Bound and the
Lacey?
Broken.
Is it
Lacey?
Lacey?
Lacey, that sounds right. Yeah. That's I
Yeah.
just had to learn about 80 new characters from the Bound and the Broken. So I had
Oh
to
gosh.
push out some files to
Yeah.
add in some new ones.
I hear you. I mean, that's the constant thing with fantasy reading.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's Lacey, but
That sounds right.
that whole scene when they see Fitz again, and Patience doesn't see that well, right? At this point, because she's older and she's lost some of her vision. And at first, you know that Lacey figures out who he is first. And then, that's emotional. And then when Patience finally gets it, it's like, oh my God, I just could not
Mhm.
stop the faucet. It was just
Yeah, I flashed back to I think it's Assassin's Apprentice, where she finally breaks down in front of him and says, "You should have been mine." That chapter always just wrecked me, and
yeah,
it's kind of made me think of that. So yeah, that was well done.
that was powerful. That was powerful. So it
Yeah,
was
she does reunions great. She's
yeah.
very good at that. You want to see them happen, and then when they do, it's worth it. Mhm.
Yep, yep. It is so worth it. And that is one of the things about reading Robin Hobb to me is yeah, maybe I get a little tired of the tea time, but there's such a rich payoff for it later on. And nobody else does it quite the same. So and that was a long time coming, from Farseer all the way to Tawny Man, and waiting for that reunion and all those years and all those things that happened in between. And it's beautifully done. So
Mhm.
yeah.
I agree.
So shall we move on then to what we read most recently, which is, now we might have a few complaints here and there. Keep in mind, guys, that we have tons of praise for Robin Hobb in general, but even for this particular tetralogy, Rainwild's Chronicles, but we're going to have a few beefs here and there. So please do
I will
beware.
give some credit to Tawny Man. One thing that I've heard some things say is when you get further in some of these series, it makes you look back on some things and
Yeah.
appreciate them more. That's what I've said about Assassin's Quest, where I was like, I didn't really like it the first time.
Yeah.
Thinking back on it, there's some things that I think I would appreciate more now, knowing what I know. I will say that I thought Icefire was kind of a dick. After I read Rainwild Chronicles, I was longing for Icefire because I did not like. I thought that Sinatra was one of the biggest dick dragons I've ever
Oh,
seen.
it's
in TV.
Centaura.
Centaura. I've called him Sinatra. I've called him Sinatra. I've called him
Frank
everything
Sinatra.
except the right. It all happened as a joke. Madison was asking what I thought of Tintaglia, and my phone autocorrected to Tijuana. So I kept calling him Tijuana on purpose, and so I started calling Satoru Sinatra just to be funny. And I actually said that in a weekly update, and people were like, "It's not Sinatra." I was like, "Yeah, that's part of the joke. I need to realize I can't put inside jokes that everybody doesn't know on my videos." Yeah, I had to learn that.
Oops.
So yeah, that's why I said those names wrong. But that dragon's a total dick. Like, there's one part
Yeah.
where he saves a girl, and it's like, "Here, I'm gonna give you wings, so you don't have to worry about me saving your punk ass ever again." I was like, "Oh,
Oh, it's Centaura. Yeah.
what a dick you are." So yeah, the dragons are just I don't know, they're just jerks, man, and they're
Yeah,
helpless.
okay, so these are not your favorite fantasy dragons of all time.
I mean, there's like Smog, and then there's like everything else, and then there's these. Yes, when it comes to dragons. Yeah,
That'd be a cool video, is to do like a
rank the
ranking
dragons.
dragons in fantasy, right? I just gave you an idea. Yeah.
Best dragons of fantasy and why they're all better than the ones in Ringwells. There you go. There's your video title. It's a little long, but it gets the point across. No, so Andrew was right about that one. He said he thought that the dragons in that were just like stray cats that you can't get rid of. Yeah, so that makes sense now. So yeah.
Well, there's one thing I do like about what Hobb does with the dragons, and I will say it did grate on me, the arrogance of some of the dragons.
Oh yeah.
Some of them were definitely better, like Mercor. It was a much more wise dragon. He's the golden one who was kind of leading them. And then others are a little goofy, like Hebe, you know, and so forth. So they have a range of personalities, but overall, I will say that the arrogance did great on me. But here's the thing. I think what Hob is doing is in a way holding up a mirror to humanity.
I was going to say, you know, a lot of times animals take the form of their owners, you know, and I was like, just look at all these trainers or whatever. They're not exactly like model individuals, you know, so I can see that.
Yeah. I mean, it's just our assumption that the world exists for us, basically. The idea that, hey, we're the center of everything and we should be able to do what we want with everybody else and treat other creatures the way we want. I mean, that's kind of what dragons are in Realm of the Elderlings, and that's actually kind of what people are too. So I feel like she's doing something there, trying to show us a little bit of our own behavior, perhaps. And if it annoys you in dragons, it should annoy you in humans too, right?
Yeah, humans are the worst. So, you know,
Yeah.
I'm used to seeing those, but you know, dragons are always these majestic creatures that we can't get enough of. And this was the first one I was just like, yeah, more of these dragons, you know. So
Yeah, yeah. So I also will say that, as I mentioned earlier, some of the relationship stuff in here unusual for Robin Hobb and me, because I usually love what she does. I got tired of the teenage extended teenage camping trip that we got with the Dragon Keepers on their way.
Cats was terrible. Rapscall was terrible. Timara, I was just like, please, girl, just pick someone and let it go, please. Cedric, all these people. I say I felt like an old man reading. I was just like, I feel like I'm like a teacher and you're watching your students flirt with each other and you just want to throw up. I don't know. And so yeah, maybe I'm just too old. I said if I had read this like when I was a teenager, I probably would have been all more about it. But this was just like, oh great, which unlikable person is going to get which with the other unlikable person, and you know,
Right.
make this other unlikable person feel left out. You know.
Yeah. I will say that I did get some satisfaction. There are certain characters that I enjoyed, like Elise, for example. I enjoyed seeing her come into her own. I enjoyed seeing her become a strong person and embrace a life of her own choosing rather than doing what she thought she was supposed to do according to society and so forth. So I enjoyed that. I enjoyed seeing Hest. I thought that was a pretty funny moment when Kahlo tells Hest, I'm going to give you a name too, because Hest is basically, this is a guy who never learns. He's like basically Kyle Haven. He's the Kyle Haven of
that's a comparison you want.
Yeah, he's the Kyle Haven of Rainwild's Chronicles, and essentially he thinks that the world revolves around him. He's an arrogant narcissist, and he keeps trying to get what he wants. And every time he does this, you can tell because we're getting his POV sometimes, and there's this complete gap between what he thinks is going to happen and what basically is going to happen. He thinks he can dominate whoever he wants and get what he wants. And he several times in a row, first Elise tells him off and Cedric punches him in the face, which I loved. And then finally, Davi also, he beats him up. Actually, I think he does that before Cedric, but whatever. And then he tries to basically tell Kahlo, the biggest dragon, you're going to be my dragon. So, sit, be a good boy. I'm going to give you a name now. You're going to be Blue Glory or something stupid like that. And Kahlo said, well, okay, fine. I'll give you a name too. And he calls him Meat.
So I mean, I guess that the biggest thing that I would say you can't skip this is, okay, so Tintaglia dies. And so we're pretty much saying like, okay, this means extinction, right? For the dragons. So I'm interested to see if that does come into play. And here where you're like, hey, what happened to the dragons? Has the playing field been leveled now? That kind of
we better see dragons in Fitz and the Fool for sure. I really want to see some intertwining here of all the series, and I hope that the final trilogy does a ton of that. Yeah, I would love to see some more of these dragons.
But every time I think that's where it's going, then it's like, nope, we're just gonna hang out and drink some tea, get drunk.
Ever tried elf bark before?
Yeah, so I've had some people tell me that, hey, Mike, you love Slice of Life. I think you're gonna love Fool's Assassin. And I'm like, well, depends on what kind of slice of life, because you can see Fool's Errand. I love it. Golden Fool, not so much. So it
Yeah.
just kind of depends, I guess, on what you are actually doing. So
Yeah.
singing drunk songs with the Fool, cool. Trying to make Thick act like a human, not so much.
Uh-huh.
So,
Yeah, part of
I
the
guess
babysitting. Yeah.
so. What else are you hopeful for in Fitz and the Fool? I think that's someone to go for. I guess you would say I want to see as happy of an ending as you can for Fitz. It's one of those where I'm like, I don't see how Fitz makes it out of this alive, right? But I mean, he's older than me, I think, at this point, So
And
I'm
he's the
interested to
old
see
dude.
really old man Fitz and seeing how his kids are probably grown now at this point. I don't know how many years have went past yet. But yeah, just kind of seeing where that's headed. And if you can get some kind of happy ending for this character, maybe he gets some new wit bonds that we can all appreciate and admire and actually accept, because you got to think those are some big wolf paws to try to fill right there, right? So whatever comes next, I feel like we're already going to kind of be guarded with our arms crossed a little bit about whatever creature comes next, But
Right, right.
if you can get as happy of an ending as you can for a character like this, I mean, hell, maybe, I don't know. I don't even know what to say. What would be a happy ending for Fitz? I don't know if I can think of one. I mean, he finally got his girl that he's been wanting forever. He's
Yep.
still obviously broken from his other half, dying. But I don't know. Just I feel like he's the type of, just a happy ending for him is just living in peace in his cabin out in the middle of nowhere.
I mean, that is kind of, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, because I basically feel like because the narrator in this is not Fitz, it's his daughter,
Hmm.
right? That much I know, and I don't think that's a spoiler for anyone. But
Do you like bees?
I like honey. Yeah.
All right, cool. Honey, yes. Stingers, no. Yes.
Yeah, stingers not so much. So I feel like it is almost always lethal to be an old character in fantasy.
Yeah.
So I do have a hunch, and this is pure speculation, people. I have not read it, so I don't know. It's not a spoiler. I have a hunch that Fitz will not live beyond Fitz and the Fool, but who knows? Who knows? But those are the two things that make me think that that is going to happen. That we have a different narrator, and he's old. So and that's just part of life, isn't it? I mean, that's you got to accept that at some point.
Hey, honestly, in this world, if you've made it to old, you've outkicked your coverage.
Done pretty well. You've done pretty well. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll be interested to see how I imagine with the titles of these books that we're going to get to see more Fitz with the Fool, and I'll be interested to see how that because it did seem like it. I don't want to say it felt like some finality to it with the way that Tawny Man ended, but I'm just like,
Right.
I'm hoping it can be in a way. And again, she's a competent enough writer. I don't feel like it's going to feel forced, but it feels earned. It feels like, okay, this would be why these two would go back into each other's lives at this point. There's still more to be done. So I'm hoping that I feel like where I didn't have that with Tiny Man, we're like, okay, I know what your journey is. Let's do it. So I'm hoping that we get that and we know where our direction is, and it isn't just like, well, wewill get there eventually, because we're kind of running out of pages here. We're running out of pages.
If that doesn't happen, then the title generator really messed up. It's the Fitz and the Fool trilogy, right? So yeah. So that has to happen. So that, I mean, I would say at this point that has got to happen for this to be a satisfying conclusion. So those are things we're hoping for, and it would be awesome for us to be able to get together. Hopefully this can happen with the rest of our crew to discuss the realm of the Elderlings as a whole. In the meantime, this discussion will we'll have to do. I have enjoyed this though, Mike, a ton.
Hey, I got a question before you sign off. I got a question. Okay, so I had this thing where I said this was my last long fantasy series I'm working on.
Yeah.
What is going to fill that void? What is going to be your next long fantasy series when this is off of the schedule? You're just going to reread Malazan again?
I actually already started it. It's Wars of Light and Shadow.
Is that Jenny Wirtz?
That's Jenny Wirtz.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wars of Light
How many books is that?
That is 11 books.
11 books. Wow.
11 books.
Now, are these the ones she does with Raymond Feist, or are these just hers?
Yeah. So the Raymond Feist trilogy was the Empire trilogy, starting with Daughter of the Empire. And that's the only thing that she co-wrote with Raymond Feist. And other than that, everything else, I believe, is just her. And so Wars of Light and Shadow is her masterpiece. This is something that she started the year I was born, 1972. So it's been over 50 years of labor and love on this series. And it is, and she's done other stuff, of course, in those years. And she didn't start publishing until much later,
Right.
but yeah, she's been working on this for a long time, and it is her masterpiece. Right now, I'm 3 books into it. I read another book by her as well, a standalone. But I'm 3 books into Wars of Light and Shadow, and I feel like she's going to be one of my favorites in terms of many things, like prose, for example. She uses fairly complex prose that a lot of people have to adjust to in the beginning, but once you adjust to it, it's gorgeous. And I love it. And I think this is going to be, in terms of complexity and layers, it is going to be up there with Malazan. So yeah, that's going to be my next one. And I'm going to be finishing it. The last book is coming out in May of 2024. So I'll be able to read the entire series and finish it.
Nice. Not having to wait's very, very nice. Very, very nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think not that it's the same, but whenever you talk about this, I always talk about fights. I'm going to try to read Magician finally next year. It's been on
read the first
been on
one.
my shelf since I was in junior high, man. So
Yeah.
I feel like I should probably finally do it.
I don't know what it is about 80s fantasy, but I have not connected with too much 80s fantasy. Like I tried Magician.
You mean when they were just trying to rewrite Tolkien? Yeah, I can't see why.
Maybe that's what it was, because this was actually in the 70s, but I did not really love Sword of Shannara because I thought
I was like 11 and I just wanted more Lord of the Rings. So I was like, awesome. You know, I don't care that's because my brother, 6 years older than me, was like, yeah, does the story sound familiar to you? Because it's like all he did was replace the names. I'm like, that works for me. Now I'm like, what the you know, at the time I just wanted more Lord of the Rings. So
yeah,
I liked it. But yeah, I can see reading the Sword of Shannara now. Yeah, for the first time, people be like, what is this? But you know, hey.
Yeah. Also, by the way, I am going to be following your footsteps and reading Ryan Cahill's The Bounty of the Broken.
That's what I was going to recommend. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, that is also on my my plans for next year. So
you're going to eat those books up, man. I just know you are. They're so good.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to them a lot. I'm Ryan Cahill. I mean, has been a really, really great human being. He reached out to me when I started to publish my own trilogy and just was very helpful and kind, super guy. And even if he weren't blowing up right now because of his storytelling, I would want to read his books just for that. You know, I don't know if he even knows, but he's in the acknowledgments of my first book. Because he was kind enough to reach out and do that.
Yeah, I've learned a lot about the game from him. I'm never going to be publishing anything, but I've learned a lot about how that all works from him. And he's a good fountain of knowledge. And it just turns out he's actually a really great storyteller too. So you want to see good dragons, not like these ones in Rainbow. If you want to see really awesome dragons, I think you're gonna love that series. So
cool. Awesome. I know there are dragon riders in The Bound and the Broken. So how would you compare them to well, it's way more YA, but there's Aragon dragon riders, right? They're dragon riders. You've read some of that, not all of it, I think, right?
I read a book and a half twice.
Oh, okay.
A book and a half twice.
Is it a similar kind of thing though in terms of the depth of the relationship between the dragon rider and the dragon?
Sort of. I don't think that Aragon kind of like is the one that put a stamp on this, but the idea of, you know, if the dragon or the rider dies, the other half is just completely ruined after that. It deals a lot with that, you know, connection kind of thing. So yeah, it has some of that. So
it's not like A Song of Ice and Fire where the Targaryens have a special connection with dragons, but they're still kind of like big nasty beasts, and you don't want to just like
this is like a true like bonding kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay, cool. It sounds great. Yeah, awesome.
Anyway. Well, hey man, thanks so much for asking me to do this. It's been fun. I'm just glad that you know, pretty soon I won't have to tag you on every single weekly update anymore that I mentioned you in the video, because every time I one of these. So
I mean, I watched them anyway. So it's fine. I don't mind.
It's been a fun journey. I'm glad. It's one of those things where now it's kind of, I'm doing this and The Expanse at the same time, going to be kind of ending at similar times, where it's getting that bittersweet stage.
Yeah.
You know, you like the feeling of, hey, you know, I get this achievement of getting this one more big heavy series in the books kind of thing, but you start getting a little sad that it's ending. You know, there is no more because I felt like I was reading Wheel of Time forever. And then when I got to that last book, it was like I started getting sad. Like at the first 100 pages, it like, wow, there is no more. I'm going to grab the next book now. You know, so
Yeah.
when you get a series this long, you know, those characters become a part of you, and it's kind of tough to say goodbye. So hopefully nothing bad will happen at all, and it'll
Oh
just be
yeah.
all puppy dogs and rainbows, because that's what Robin Hobb does, right?
And little unicorns prancing in the meadow.
Little tiny unicorns. Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
it's been exciting. So thanks for taking the journey with me, and thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you so much for all you do here on YouTube, and
Happy
I
to do it.
really appreciate it. And I look forward to chatting with you about the end of Realm of the Elderlings.
Should be fun.
All right. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time.